Chapter 4, Slaves and Masters. Because of our history in the United States, slavery is a touchy subject. When we think of slavery, we think of race. The original concept of slavery had nothing to do with skin color. Slavery existed in many cultures dating back to early human civilizations. There were many types of slavery, and some modern forms are still practiced in America today. The word slavery has also been used to refer to a legal state of dependency on somebody else. This is the form of slavery I'm talking about. A slave is a person who is the property of another and is forced to obey them. A master is a person who has people working for him, especially servants or slaves. A slave cannot make decisions on his own. A slave does not provide for himself. A slave does only what he is told and is only able to advance as high as the master will allow. A master does not belong to someone else. He makes the rules and his own decisions. A master uses the slave to provide for him. An employer is more like a master, and an employee is more like a slave. I'm not saying that having a job makes you a slave or having employees makes you a slave master, but these two types of people think very differently. We all can't be in charge. We all can't be the boss. Someone has to follow. Someone has to be the employee. That's not the issue. The question is, why do you believe you should only be the follower and only the employee? We can learn a lot from people who are slaves and the ones that are masters. Poor people only see their needs. What they can't see is what they have to offer. Poor people only see themselves as the slave and never the master. They can only see themselves as the employee, never the employer. There are many poor people with expensive degrees that work for employers that have no certifications at all. No matter how much money a professional athlete makes, they will never make what the owner of the team gets. Usually, the master, owner, can't play or has never played the sport that the slave professional athlete plays. The team owner is never cut or traded. The employee, athlete's career is over after his youth, but the employer, owner's position usually lasts for a lifetime. I've noticed that slaves usually compete with other slaves. It's no secret that slaves try to outdo other slaves. They want to be the master's favorite. In all of their efforts to rise above other slaves, they never desire to really be a true master. Some slaves desire to be an overseer of his master's house, but never the master. That is as far as a slave will go. That invisible psychological line won't be crossed. Masters don't compete with slaves. Masters create the games that slaves play. Masters aren't waiting on someone else to tell them what to do. No one has to make a master's work schedule. A master isn't afraid to get fired. Who's going to fire him? A master has needs just like the slave, but they believe they can do something about it. A master believes it's his responsibility to do something about his own lack. If he can't or doesn't want to do anything about his own needs himself, a master will create a system for slaves to do it for him. We should all be masters in some area of our own lives. We may not be the employer from 9 to 5, but what we do for our own home is up to us. We are responsible for our own communities. The way we build relationships is our responsibility. What we do with our money is our responsibility. Raising our children is our responsibility. How we acquire and take care of what we have is our responsibility. To be the master not only means that you are the boss, but it also means you have to take responsibility for whatever you have the rule over. If everything goes well, you can take all the credit. When things go bad, it's all your fault. Since it's all your fault, it is your responsibility to fix it or to get it fixed. Being a master does not have to be a bad thing. When you are in authority, You can make wise and righteous decisions. You can make sure that others are treated fairly. If a master becomes a politician, he can help pass just laws. The master does not have to take advantage of the slave. When there are no jobs, a master can employ the unemployed. A master can create things that benefit society. A slave does not have the authority to change anything. A slave can only do what he is told. In actuality, someone has to be the master, but that invisible psychological line obstructs the path of slaves to becoming one. All a poor mindset will allow you to see is the bad master and the helpless slave. A lot of people have used Christianity to keep people as subservient slaves. Why do you see yourself as the slave and not the master when you read the Bible? Did God make you the slave, or did someone else? Did God make someone else the master, or did they do it themselves? Who told you that? Is that really God's will for you, or is that someone else's will? Why do you believe the slaves that are to obey their masters should be you? If you reverse your position in your mind, that scripture sounds a lot different. Without removing any of the scripture verses, I can still see the Bible as a message of liberation. I want to be in the position that has the authority to be a blessing and not the position to only beg for a blessing. We can learn a lot from those that desire to receive a blessing and people that desire to give a blessing. The Bible has examples of people that wanted, needed, and asked God for blessings and miracles. Mark chapter 10 is a perfect example. Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52, King James Version. And they came to Jericho, and as he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great number of people, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the highway side begging. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And many charged him that he should hold his peace. But he cried the more a great deal, Thou son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. And they called the blind man, saying unto him, Be of good comfort, rise, he calleth thee. And he casted away his garment, rose and came to Jesus. And Jesus answered and said unto him, What wilt thou that I should do unto thee? The blind man said unto him, Lord, that I might receive my sight. And Jesus said unto him, Go thy way, thy faith has made thee whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus in the way. There are also examples of people that desire to bless the Lord and his people. Luke chapter 7 is a perfect example. Luke chapter 7, verses 44 through 50, King James Version. And he turned to the woman and said unto Simon, Seest thou this woman? I entered into the house. Thou gavest no water for my feet, but she hath washed my feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hairs of her head. Thou gavest me no kiss, but this woman, since the time I came in, has not ceased to kiss my feet. My head with oil thou didst not anoint, but this woman hath anointed my feet with ointment. Wherefore I say unto thee, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. And he said unto her, Thy sins are forgiven. And they that sat at meat with him began to say within themselves, Who is this that forgiveth sins also? And he said to the woman, Thy faith hath saved thee. Go in peace. A desire to be a master is needed to overcome the poverty mind. The way we look at the position of the master and the slave has to be revisited in our thinking. It's difficult to become something that you hate. It's easy to become what we love. We've been taught to hate the position of the master and to love the position of the slave. I don't take advice from people who teach that kind of madness. That kind of teaching does not empower, but causes total dependence from the outside. Being a master can position you to not just be blessed, but to be a blessing.